Joining us now is Yasmeen Motiwalla. She is a US congressional candidate in California's 34th district. As a Californian myself, a native to California, I'm excited to speak with you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Good to see you, Anna.
Good to see you. Looking through your platform and what your campaign represents, I'm definitely intrigued by it. You have a lot of progressive policies and views, especially when it comes to foreign policy. But I do want to talk a little bit about some of the issues that impact this particular district, California's 34th. You write that California's 34th has some of the poorest neighborhoods in the country. In Westlake, just north of downtown, the average per capita income is $15,722, half the national average. More than 1 in every 60 people in my district lives on the street. Some of our schools have dropout rates as high as 40%, and our neighbors in Boyle Heights and East Los Angeles have been waiting for years for someone to clean up the toxic lead poisoning their yards. So I'm very aware of these issues, and the homeless population has really exploded in Los Angeles over the last few years. So what is your proposal to combat these complex issues?
Yeah. Well, first off, I want to say that as much as foreign policy is separate from some of these issues that are immediately in front of us here on the ground here at home, I think it is important to remember that the cost of the wars overseas are directly siphoning money off that we need to fund our schools and pay for infrastructure repairs and create the kind of even housing supply, affordable housing supply that we need. So many policies at the national level that we have the capacity to pass would have a direct correlation to reducing homelessness. And that includes passing Medicare for All, a real plan, because many folks live on the street because they ended up going bankrupt after a medical bill that they couldn't afford. Also, support for queer youth who are getting kicked out of their homes, potentially because of coming out. That's important that we have services for queer youth and folks who may be experiencing also domestic abuse or having to leave an unsafe home environment. We need to, I mentioned the fact that foreign wars and our overseas adventures are siphoning off a lot of money that we need, but they're also producing vets who have not been rehumanized and reintegrated into society in a complete way. Clearly, since 25% of the homeless population have served in our military, as well. Criminal justice reform is another huge critical piece of the system that we need to really reform. When folks leave jail, they're often have a difficult time finding employment and housing, and we gotta shift that. This is leading to the crisis that we find, and the crisis affects all of us. I know that it's a big concern amongst all of my community. Even those who are housed, it's something we all want to find a solution to, and it needs to have happened yesterday. So
I mean, look, I think that you're absolutely right on the issues. However, what you want to fight against, unfortunately, has a lot of powerful people and money behind it. And so I think that you make a really good point about how our involvement in these endless wars is impacting our domestic policy by ripping away incredibly important resources that our people need, right? So how do you fight back? What is your theory of change? How do you fight back against the military-industrial complex? Very powerful, very well-resourced. How do you fight back against members of your own party, Democrats, who are certainly corrupt themselves and they fight to protect the current system that we're living under? How do you do it?
Yeah, well, it's important to realize this is not a new battle. This has been going on for decades and decades. I came from 11 years of organizing with a nonprofit, Peace Action. And I learned a lot about how even as individuals without a ton of resources and money, we can employ a whole, you know, a whole suite of organizing strategies to actually impact the pressure points and make change. And a lot of that is face-to-face grassroots organizing, having one-on-one conversations with citizens who often just don't recognize their own power to make change. People don't realize that they could pick up the phone and call their representative and 2 senators and even the White House and leave a message. And they could, write a letter, email them, go visit them.
It's so interesting because I think you're right. I'm not sure how effective writing a letter or making a phone call is, but we see how effective political activism is on the right, especially when it comes to Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump's theory of change, I don't think he would refer to it as a theory of change. I don't think he really thought about it at all. But his supporters are so vociferous that even Republican lawmakers who clearly disagree with him on issues will vote along with him, or in the case of the Senate impeachment trial, they'll go ahead and cover up Donald Trump's crimes because they know that if they don't do so, the people who support him will put their political careers on the line. And so I think that that's a really interesting way of empowering people to push for change. Unfortunately, on the right, it's being used for nefarious purposes. But I think that we need to empower people on the left. And so how do you do that? I love the grassroots organizing that you've done. I think that that's incredibly important perspective and experience to bring to the table. But what's the best way to mobilize people on the left?
Yeah, well, and you mentioned earlier also that part of my struggle is challenging the people within the Democratic Party, within my own party, who have also been, allowing, it seems to, or not standing up forcefully enough to this administration and previous administrations like the George W. Bush administration. And so, I think that, this has become a big, the 2 parties have risen in power, and we're in a system where that's sort of the choices that we have. And I do believe that the Democratic Party as a whole shares values that I think, that I align with. And I believe that parties are important and organizing is important. But as we see is that there's politicians from both political parties who have accepted campaign money and filled their coffers and are continuously taking money from industries that clearly are benefiting from a system that's tilted in their favor. So I think that across, Republicans and Democrats should be running. We need Republicans and Democrats to run who are willing to both not accept the corporate PAC money and then do the kind of organizing it takes to actually compete in the system. So that is the big challenge. It's a big challenge I face is that the incumbent in my race has $800,000 in the bank. I'm doing moderately well in fundraising. I really need everyone to, use a mass movement of people pitching in to really help me challenge the establishment in this race. And I know that with just enough resources that I actually be able to run a ground game and do the kind of face-to-face organizing that can really shift this. I can win this seat.
Definitely. So if anyone in our audience is interested in learning more about the campaign and donating, you can just check out that link. We have it written down below: FYM2020.com. FYM2020.com. And then on the screen, you see the various URLs to go to if you're interested in donating and volunteering. So one final question for you, because you did mention how well-resourced the incumbent Democrat is. Now, part of the reason why he's well-resourced is because there is, DCCC support, DNC support. So has there been any response to your campaign by the Democratic establishment in any way? Well, obviously, I'm the DCCC blacklist. Does mean that there are consultants that wouldn't work with me, but there are,
I will say I'm not too focused on what they are not providing. My vision and my goal is to actually use this opportunity as a candidate to do intersectional organizing in a really powerful way here in Los Angeles, where there's incredible organizers and groups working on solutions to the problems we face. My goal is to build constructive relationships and with those organizations and leaders in our community. So on day one of my administration, we can work together to move policy, and do it without, the backing of, the well-funded establishment and whatnot. So
I love that. Yeah. So for our audience members, please check out more information about Francis's campaign and donate if you can. Go to FYM2020.com. FYM2020.com. Francis, thank you so much for taking the time to share your information about your race with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Like what you see? Click the subscribe button below and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another video from the Young Turks.